what my garden looks like from this side. We've got this one really long trellis that is mostly full of San Marzano sauce tomatoes. There's a few others mixed in there, but this is about 80 feet long. And we had a great year for my first real garden. Last year, all I had was from about the well here all the way back, this one strip of about 3 feet wide by 40 feet at that time. That's all we had last year. And we did not get much because my soil, I realized, was hot. It was not fully decomposed enough to grow plants yet, and so most of what I planted shriveled up and got burned and didn't produce anything. So this year I call my first real year of gardening, and believe it or not, the rest of this was not here at all last year. So these other 3 beds that you see, here's 1, 2, and 3. These other 3 beds were not here at all last year, so they got put in last fall. We did the no-dig gardening method. So what that means for us with our heavy red clay soil, which would not be good for growing many of these things, what we did is we had the whole area mowed. We did not even have it plowed at all, and we just put tons of cardboard down. We had just moved into our house, and so we had a huge pile of cardboard, and we got it all put down. This is my first real year gardening here in this location where we're at. We're more western North Carolina. We're not in the mountains, but we are near the foothills, and we are zone 7B. And I had gardened a few years in this zone, but not in this particular area. And so my first 2 attempts were mostly failures because our first 2 loads of soil that we got from our compost company, they were delivered in dump trucks, and they were hot loads. I didn't know at the time until I started to plant in them, and everything burned and shriveled and didn't grow. I think the second load was a particularly poor soil as well, and so I had to heavily amend things before it would grow at all. So I do consider this my first real year gardening, and I think it was pretty successful for my first year. So I can take you and show you everything that we grew this summer and what I have started for the fall. So this big long trellis I put up just with the help of my son, who is 7 years old. It was very difficult, and if you look at it close enough, you'll see that it's not perfectly straight, and I don't care, and I'm not going to plan to fix it anytime soon. So what we have here, these are yellow bell tomatoes. These are an heirloom, I believe. They grew great, and I loved them. I would grow them again. As you can see, a lot of these tomatoes have these dead, crinkly leaves on them, midway down. That is because in our area, we get days and days and weeks of 90 degrees, really hot weather, and the tomatoes do suffer during that time. And so a lot of the leaves die and they look really sick, and you could just pull the plants out at that point, but I did not. I decided to keep them in because I knew the weather would cool down, and they have started growing and producing again. Look at, I've got this nice big green tomato on, and it is October 17th. So I'm hoping that this will ripen before our first frost. Our first frost date for our area is October 15th, which is 2 days ago, and so everything at this point can be kind of considered a bonus. I've got this lovely one here that I've been waiting for to ripen. It's got a bug on it. My garden was infested with these bugs. I don't know what they're called, but they definitely started on the tomatillos and went to the tomatoes after that. They just seemed to bite the tomatoes, and they didn't really seem to cause too much of a problem, but they were everywhere. What I have here is holy basil growing. The bees are totally in love with it, and I would definitely grow it again. It's great for tea. It's not like a pesto Italian type of basil. It's more of a medicinal herbal type of basil. I've been harvesting a lot of it and drying it for tea, and it's really delicious, really flowery taste, and it's really good. Holy basil is also, it's an adaptogenic herb, I believe, so it helps your body adapt to different stresses, and I believe is generally calming and soothing for the body. I don't actually know what type of pepper this is. If it turns red, it is a lipstick pepper. And here you can see I've started some little peas. I started these when the weather was 90 degrees and hot so that they would hopefully grow before they get too frosted, because I find that peas, although they are frost hardy, they really are wimpy and they can't handle a lot of frost. Here you can see I've started carrots. I've got some carrots started there, and I will try to cover those if it does frost coming up here. I interplanted zinnias and marigolds in my garden for pollinators, and the marigolds are supposed to help with pests, so I've got those as well. And you can see here I've got a really nice cluster of these San Marzano tomatoes, and I don't know if these are going to ripen. Overall, I was very disappointed in the San Marzanos in my garden this year. I found that they tended to rot before they fully ripened. Not necessarily blossom end rot either. There was some of that, but they would just rot from the inside before they fully ripened. I did get several gallon-sized Ziploc bags of nice ripe ones, but I think a lot of them rotted. Like, I would say up to 50%, which is not good. I am going to try them again next year, even though I had this problem. I'm not going to give up after 1 year of something not going according to plan. I have heard from several different sources that San Marzano's flavor is totally amazing, and I don't think mine are ripening fully, and so I haven't gotten that flavor yet. But as it is with all of these green ones that I have on, if it's going to frost in the next couple of days, I can pick them all and take them inside and try to ripen them. I have done that throughout the summer as well, and I still found that they tended to rot before they were fully ripe. And so I'm still going to take them in, and I will probably freeze them even though they're green, and I will try to find some type of green tomato recipe. Since they're smaller, they're, you know, kind of oblong, they're not really great for fried green tomatoes, but I will definitely use them up somehow, even if they're still green, because there's a lot. Here at the end of my garden, I have okra growing. This is a red burgundy okra, and it's definitely 6 feet or taller at this point. This was a rather late planting for me because I had planted okra over in our clay garden in several places, and it didn't germinate well and basically withered. I didn't get any type of harvest from it. But these are doing well. This was that first load of soil I got. That's what's here. It's now growing well, and so it just took a little time to get going. So with this garden, when I planted it, I didn't know if these other 3 beds here would grow. I didn't know if the soil was going to be good for this year, so I planted things really spotty. I wanted to put things that I really wanted to do well in this bed, and then I planted some in this bed. So it's a very sporadic garden this year, and next year I would like to have like a pepper bed, a basil bed, an okra bed, rather than having things so sporadic. On this trellis I had a melon, and I'm not tearing off these dead leaves and vines yet because these little peas that are growing down below are grabbing onto them with their little tendrils and climbing up. So once the peas make it up to this trellis, I will tear them down if the peas make it up there. So here I had some basils. These are kind of a little spent, and I will harvest some leaves off there to dry still before the frost. This pepper here is a sugar rush peach pepper, I believe. And it was kind of a late bloomer, kind of took off late. There's a rotten one there, but it did produce a lot. So a few weeks ago I planted this cilantro down in here when it was kind of hot still. So I didn't get the greatest germination, but once it frosts, all these other plants will be gone. These basils will be gone and the peppers. And then this will just take off more, this cilantro. And then here I have parsley. In our zone 7B where we are, I find that parsley can grow through the summer. Probably especially well if it's a little shaded by other things. Like I have these tomatoes here, kind of shading it. And it's taken off more at the end of the summer here when things have cooled down. I just can't get over this amazing holy basil. The bees are in heaven. They just love it. They love it. It's so cool. It makes me really want to keep bees and try to do honey in several years. I'm not ready for that yet. Here I have started some pink celery. There's just a few that are coming up. You can see this one plant. It's rather slow going, but you can tell the stem is pink. And amidst this holy basil, I also have some Thai basil here, which I will be harvesting before the frost, and I will dry the leaves and use it in my stir fries. I did have a tomatillo here. I didn't have the greatest success with tomatillos. Those bugs went after them, but I would try them again, and I did have a good first flush where I was able to harvest before the bugs came. So in this place I have Utah celery planted. Celery generally takes 3 weeks to germinate, which is a rather long time. And then it starts off very slow. So that's what these tiny plants are, and they'll eventually get going. Here I have arugula, and I have some dino kills that are getting eaten up pretty bad right now, but once it frosts, the bugs will die and those will start to take off and do better. I have some green onions. This basil is called mammoth basil. It's really good. I used it a lot for sandwiches. Like if I made a tomato sandwich, I would just pick some leaves from that because lettuce does not grow in our area in the summer. It's much too hot, and it just goes straight to seed. And then I have this is one giant marigold that totally took over. A little bit of parsley there. This looks like parsley, but it's not. This is a cutting celery, so it looks like parsley, but it tastes like celery. And it's cut and come again. It's really nice to use in soups, and I also put it in my broth bag to make some broths out of. I have a few carrots coming in there. Got little carrots planted around these taller plants to shade them while the weather was still hot in the 90s. And let's see, we talked about our carrots. These are a couple shishito peppers that are still hanging on. I just harvested a lot from these yesterday, so I don't know if they'll have much more. This is a nasturtium coming back to life. More kind of died back when it was 90s, and now it's looking a lot better. Those are good for deterring pests in the garden. We've got some zinnias hanging on, bringing in the pollinators all summer. This is another one of those mammoth basils. I really let this one go to seed, so I'm hoping to collect some seed from this year. This is one marigold plant again, taking over by the end of the summer. Another pepper plant here. This is kale, these itty bitties coming up. And this bigger one here is a green kale that I planted when it was much hotter out. Some peppers. I believe these are habanadas, so the same as habaneros but with no heat. And here we've got a red bell pepper. I'm gonna see if these will turn red before the frost. Here I planted in some collards. They're getting a little eaten up by the bugs too, but if we get that frost, that'll kill the bugs, and they should be doing better and take off a little better. Here I've got some itty bitty yad fa. These are a type of broccoli rabe that is an heirloom. Here I planted some itty bitty romaine lettuces, and I'm gonna very carefully prick these out and take them up and spread them out properly so they'll grow nicely for me. I've got those peas in the back that will hopefully climb up to the trellis and produce for us. I believe those are a telephone pea, so they're a taller pea. I've got some random peppers flopping over into the aisle. I grew these huckleberries this year. They tended to grow very slowly and ripen very slowly, and I'm not sure if I would do these again, but I am going to harvest them and attempt to make them into a syrup for pancakes and things. These are some globe basils that I grew, and I don't know that I would grow these again. They're going to seed here, so they're not really good for saving anymore. They turn bitter. What I have here in this row is a little bit of Swiss chard, so that should be doing better and better as the weather stays cool. Here I have some more green kale growing. I've got some dills that are taking off, so these I didn't plant at all. They just seeded out from the ones that I planted in the spring, and they came up all on their own. I didn't have to plant them. In the back here, I've got strawberries in the front of this bed, which totally took over, and I'm going to be pulling them up and planting them in some other places to spread them out and increase our strawberry production. What I have here is eggplants, these beautiful purple little flowers are eggplants. These are a variety from Baker Creek, rareseeds.com, and they are called string eggplants, and I found them to be very, very prolific. I have 4 plants, and that was plenty for us. They were used mostly in stir fries for sauteing and frying up, and I still would say that I'm not a huge eggplant lover, but it was really fun to grow these, and I would do it again just to use in stir fries and things in the summer. So we've got here the strawberry row in the front. Behind that you can see the asparagus coming in. That at this point is just going to dry up and turn brown, and then I'll cut it down for the year. And in the back I tried to grow artichokes, but they did not do well at all. They may be completely dead. I'll have to go in and see once the frost comes. I'm not going to step in this tall stuff when the weather is still warm, because in our area we do have snakes, and that's something that I'm not willing to do until the weather changes. These are the Queen Lime zinnias that I grew, and I really did like them a lot. They're kind of looking more pale yellow at this point, but earlier in the summer they were very lime green, so they were great. I loved having those. So this area is an eyesore right now, but my son has been digging it up for me with his diggers and things, getting that good soil out of there to put on areas that we need more right now. And then this will also, we will start adding compost and dirt after this side is done. So as you can see here, these beds are made of a recycled material that we dumpster dove in our own dumpster that was in our yard when our house was being built, because all of these boards were going to be thrown away and wasted, and we grabbed those and made garden beds out of them. I couldn't believe the amount that were just going to be thrown away and wasted. These are Trek decking, so our back porch is made from this Trek decking so that it will never have to be replaced or stained or sanded or anything. We wanted a very long-term product, and so all of these are extra that would have been thrown away. So we grabbed those out and made our garden beds out of them. And this soil was also hot last year. So last fall, I tried to start this fall garden, and again, everything shriveled up and got burned and died because this soil was also hot. So I received 2 hot loads, which was really unfortunate. I have in this bed some bull's blood beets. I don't know if these are particularly juicy, but it's what it seemed like. I plan to juice and make beet hummus out of. And then here I planted some golden beets. And I would say if you don't really like beets, I would definitely give golden beets a try. This is my tray that has 200 itty bitty cells in it, and you might think that this is a really bad idea for starts because they will run out of space before they get 6 weeks old, and that's typically when a lot of the seed packets recommend that you plant them out, that you let them be in their tray for 6 weeks. But what I did is these were a little later than ideal for planting out. And so I knew they weren't going to be in the trays for 6 weeks. They were probably in there for 4. And so what I did is I planted them out, and this is how they are looking. So these are some Swiss chard, and then I have a crisp mint romaine lettuce. I have scarlet kale, more lettuce. We eat a lot of lettuce. This is a red romaine right here. That's a red romaine. And then I have some brassicas. I have a purple cauliflower. I have some yad fa, which is that broccoli rabe that I really like. I tend to like broccoli rabe better than the big broccoli heads. They're actually cut and come again, which is really nice. And I've got this one lonely carrot that isn't quite big enough that I let stay in. So what I have here, this is a sunflower stem that I allowed it to stay because there's beans growing on it, but I chopped the rest down because I want to get this ready to have some frost covers for when it starts to frost. And so what I have here is radishes, and what I have planted is the regular red kind. I also did the watermelon radish that's green on the edge and pink in the middle. And then I am trying a wasabi radish as well. And so we'll see how those do. I've got some cinnamon and Thai basil here. This is a calendula that's kind of hanging on, and it's revived and ready to go again after those 90s are over. A very random parsley plant. And then these are some early Jersey Wakefield cabbages that I started from seed. And then this is a rosemary plant. And these are something very exciting that I would most definitely grow again. These are noodle beans. These are green noodle beans, and I really liked growing these a lot, and I would definitely grow them again. I'm gonna pick one here and show you. They're this long and there's a few reasons that I really like these. Number one, they're just really cool. They are super long. They're more of like a sauteing bean, so I would use them for sauteing. I will use them in making shepherd's pie and things like that. I've heard some people say that they're not so good for canning, but I also have heard a friend say that she canned them and liked them fine. So it's all up to you what you want to do with them. But I planted these in April and they took a while to take off, and I don't know if that was just our soil or if it was because it was a very long spring. Like, it took a while to really heat up. But once it did heat up, these took off really well. And I was harvesting a lot from these, and then at one point in the summer I went on a trip for 2 weeks, so they all went to seed, and I came back and a lot of them were brown and they all went to seed, which was great because I got a lot of seed for next year and to hand out to friends and things. But I took those all off, and it took a few weeks for the plant to kind of reboot, and I could see little bits of new growth on it. And then I saw blossoms, and now we're back into beans again until it frosts. So I really love this plant. It's been going since April, and it's October right now, so it's been going hard for 6 months, and I think if the weather didn't frost, it would keep on going for a long time. It just seems like a very hardy plant. And it didn't peter out, it's just going strong. So I will definitely grow these probably every year, and I'll probably grow them on my arch trellis in the back next year. These were an experiment. These little trellises, these are something that we also dumpster dived in our own dumpster in our yard when our house was being built, and we saved these and we thought they would be good for something, and I wasn't sure what at the time. And then I figured I would use them in the garden. And I also grew banana melons on these, and they were great. What I'm actually going to do with them is trim them so they're a little shorter, and they'll just be like 3-foot row covers over our beds. And I'm not going to use them in this way in the future, just because I thought they took up some extra space that I didn't want, and I didn't really like the look of it in my garden. Although they worked fine, I would put them on like a bigger arch trellis that I could walk under. I don't know if you can really tell, but I can't walk under this unless I'm crouched way down, and so I'm not going to use these again for this purpose. What I have here is this little flower called Sweet Alyssum, and I've heard that this is a frost hardy little flower. And so I thought if I could get this growing, it would do well for the pollinators even after it frosts. These 3 brassicas that I have here are a purple cauliflower, just a hybrid. I wanted to experiment and see if these were just a little bit ahead of the game compared to my brassica seed starts that I had, to see how that would work for the timing. And they definitely took off really well compared to mine. They're just looking really healthy, and they're taking off great. So we'll see if we get any purple cauliflower out of those. If it does frost, I plan to cover this with that row cover. And so we'll try to save those and keep them going through the frost. These are something that I don't actually remember what they are. They're something I planted from seed, and so we'll see what those are once they get bigger. This is a Yad Fa broccoli, one of the broccoli ribs again. I did plant those in a few places, and this looks like a Swiss chard, and I'm not sure what else. Honestly, at this point, my markers are not here anymore, so I'm not sure. In this area, I have replanted and replanted. I had late round Dutch cabbage, and they died. They did not stick around. I don't know why. They didn't seem to be eaten Maybe they didn't like the heat when they were first planted. They seemed kind of babyish because everything else I planted did okay. So I had these spinach in my 200 cell tray, and I had one little spinach seed per tray, and they were starting to look poorly, and I planted them out, and they seem to be doing a little better. I can tell this one has some new green growth in the middle. And I know that spinach are very heavy nitrogen feeders, and so I think they just ran out of nutrition in that tray. And so now that I have them in the ground, they're doing a little happier and they're trying to bounce back. The weather's also been perfect for them, I think. It's been, 60s and 70s and cooling down at night, and so they've been perfectly happy with the weather. On this side of the giant marigold, I have some more mammoth basil. I have a random brassica there that I don't remember what it is. And the herb that I have there is catnip. And there's a mustard. There's a couple mustards on this side that I planted. And so those are doing well, and they'll continue to do well in the cool weather. So this garden I call our clay garden. And so what this is not actually our property. It's not our land. It is our neighbors, our lovely neighbors, Miss Kay and David. And so they have gardened this area for, I think, like 40 years. They gardened this area. And what they normally do is plow it up with a tractor and plant things. And they did plow it up for us this spring, but we wanted to adopt the no-dig gardening method. And so what we did is we laid cardboard as much as we possibly could. And we planted and kind of put the cardboard around the plant starts that we planted. And then we did a bunch of wood chips. And what happened is we ran out of wood chips and we couldn't get any more. And so, we couldn't get any more for free, that is. So it seems to be that you can get wood chips for free a lot in the spring, but at some point when it hits summer, arborists are not cutting down trees as much, and so we were not able to get any more wood chips, and so that's why it looks a little bit overtaken by the weeds. It kind of got away from us. And so just a really quick recap of this garden. I have this trellis that I put up, as well as this one, and then that one. We did a little experiment here, which I would not repeat, with the round little trellises for the tomatoes. They would fall over in the wind, so I wouldn't recommend that. And this one we had melons on. So what I had on here was mostly cherry tomatoes and some other kind of tomatoes, and then we had beans on this one. I didn't particularly like the beans that we chose, and I wouldn't grow them again. I have a row of field peas here, like black-eyed peas and crowder peas, that we need to continue harvesting on. They're looking pretty defeated and done for this season, so we just need to harvest those. And then here we have a whole bunch of sweet potatoes that we are going to be harvesting soon. So thanks for coming along with me and seeing my garden. This is the before frost tour. So we will come back and take a look and see what it looks like after the frost and see what has died and what has survived. Thanks for coming along with me. Bye.